Sometimes leadership begins long before you've ever been put in charge. It starts when people trust you enough to follow your example, your ideas, or your vision. I'm Navir Walkowitz, class of 99. Long Blue Leadership starts now. Well, Lieutenant Colonel Joe Paveway Bledsoe III, welcome to Long Blue Leadership.
Navir, it's great to see you. Thank you for having me here today. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
So, Joe, your career has been exciting so far, and you're still in it. You know, you have been operational leader, obviously an F-15E Strike Eagle pilot. You've been deployed. You have been a researcher. You're a Young Alumni Excellence Award winner for our association and foundation. You've been an AOG board director and a fellow for the Institute for Future Conflict. And that's just, a short little list because you're soon heading back into over to, is it North Carolina, right? Seymour
That's
Johnson.
correct. Seymour Johnson.
To get back
Yep.
in the cockpit.
Yep. Yeah, we're super excited.
Yes. Well, we're going to touch on probably many of those places, but I want to dial us back to something that only one graduate in every class experiences. And for you, it happened shortly after basic cadet training. Your class selected you as your class president. How did that come about?
How did that all go down? That's a great question.
Right.
So there we were, right after basic
There
training.
we were.
I was in Cadet Squadron 19 for my freshman year, and I got the opportunity. This is one of those voluntold moments, right, where the upperclassmen and BCT cadre said, Joe, or Cadet Bledsoe, report to H1 during transition week as everybody's coming back. And you're like, sure, yep, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, here we go. So I show up with 40, 50 other fourth class cadets. And we come to find out it was for us, and we were going to go through who was going to be the class officers. So first off, as I look back on that experience, a lot of respect and, humility being asked to go represent Squadron 19, right? Like I didn't volunteer. They just kind of pointed me in that direction. So we show up and got to interview with the upperclassmen, class officers. And there's funny interview questions, real serious interview questions. I was just honest, right? Like I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I think about what being a leader looks like and how I could help serve the class, not thinking I would ever be selected, right? And as the night is going on and ACQ is right around the corner, they kind of whittle it down to 4 or 5 of us. And we get up in front of the rest of the cadets and classmates that were there. And it was an open forum, like, back in Rome times, like you're standing in the gauntlet.
Did they do the whole?
Yeah, like it was like Roman voting, right?
Yes.
And asked a bunch of questions. And I remember standing up there with, preppies, prior enlisted, and then me just like straight off the street. And there was a couple other of us up there and just answered the questions honestly. And at the end of that, there was a vote and, they read the results and I was like, holy smokes, I'm class president. How did this happen, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot that it was daunting at first, right? And then also like, this is awesome. I don't know what I'm getting into, right? I just found out about it. And I remember walking back on the TZO. This was the first time I can say this now because, grad and I didn't run the strips because the upperclassmen and class officers walked me back. And I distinctly remember back to my squadron, to Jordan Kraft and Forrest Underwood walked back and were given some mentorship to me, like, here's how to succeed. Here's things we would recommend. And it was just an awesome opportunity to like kind of learn what peer leadership looks like, what it means to be in this not org chart that is unique to the academy. And that's where the adventure started for class president. I'm still, I haven't been fired yet. And I still proudly serve the class of 2011, Robin Old's class, as their class president. And it's one of the best jobs that I have the privilege of doing.
My goodness. I mean, just to unpack that a little bit, obviously in basic cadet training, you did enough to impress your cadre, because I'm sure that there was probably some sort of cadre selection to bring however many came forth first. Would you say that would you agree with that? Or is that, am I way off?
Yeah, I would say, I think when I look back on my time in basic training, like I wanted to come to the academy since I was in middle school, right? So like I thrived. I'm not saying it was easy by any means, right? We all know that. But I thrived in like this new adventure, right? And I took everything, I embraced everything. And I think that may have been something they saw, right? Like I was clay to be molded, right? And I had some probably opportunities in basic to show that to my BCT cadre, and they picked up on it. It wasn't that I was trying, but I think looking back on that experience, there was moments of like my freshness, my eagerness, my like pride in that I made it to basic training, that I
Right.
wanted to just try as hard as I could. And I think some of that probably shone through and ultimately may have been why I was selected to go try that interview process, right?
So that interview process, at the end of the day, you were elected by your peers, and it's to your point. You said in that unusual, the not normal org chart, right? The one that doesn't exist, but yet you have leadership of your class. What did that look like? I mean, how did that translate? Because not many of us are class presidents. I'm certainly not my class president, and so I'm not sure what that leadership role looks like. Can you share a little bit more about some examples of what
Yeah,
that
I think
happened?
that leadership role, it was very different each year, right?
Okay.
Right, as a freshman and a sophomore, as a 4 degree and a 3 degree, before any like official academy leadership positions start to present themselves that they do for 2 degrees and firsties. It was a lot of helping the class stay as a collective whole, right? So one of the first big things as freshmen was selecting our class exemplar, right? And running like who do we select? How do we come together and figure that process out? How do we then, once we have a name, once we selected Robin Olds, how do we have a formal dining in? Things that I had never even heard of, right?
Right.
Um, as well as on the other side, the shenanigans, right? So the spirit missions, right? There was many a times I had to go to the commandant's office and
Can
say,
only
I don't
imagine.
know where the class crest is, like out of pure honesty, right? But like that was like a way as an underclassman that we kind of got that informal leadership, but also you're the leader by default here, so we're gonna make you accountable for your class. So I got to see both
Right.
sides of that. Transitioning a little bit more to 2 degree and first year was now taking a little bit step back and
Okay.
riding in the informal leadership position. So I looked as myself as like a supporting agent, supporting member to our cadet leadership, right? And I always
Okay.
presented that like, hey, if you need our class to do something, I will do that. But if militarily, you own that, like I'm not ever going to step on your toes or push back, right? The other thing I was able to do is also help provide like morale inputs, right? Like you kind of had the pulse of morale, I think more as the class president sometimes than in the cadet official leadership. So could help provide some inputs along those ways. And there are some, we'll say more shenanigans or morale events that we got to help put forth and present those to the cadet leadership for official approval later on as we were firsties.
Gosh. Well, that was, I mean, it's really insightful for us to understand some of the roles that a class president and the class cabinet plays. And so understanding that I like how you put it as a supporting agent to the formal leadership. And we'll touch on this a lot more because I think there's going to be times when you'll share how you build that trust and credibility throughout both when you're a cadet and as an officer. But before we jump there, I happened to find out, Joe, that you weren't coming to the Air Force Academy to become a fighter pilot, but to become a physician. Can we talk about that for a
Yeah,
moment?
absolutely. That's absolutely. I came to the Air Force Academy and wanted to be a doctor. I knew I
Yes.
wanted to be a biology major. I declared, I think, the first day I could declare, and went through the gauntlet of getting ready for med school applications. And I loved every second of it, Navir. It was awesome.
Wow.
Even my fellow classmates would say he was a huge nerd and studying all the time because that was my goal, right? I came into the academy
Right.
and I wanted to be a doctor, and I knew the gauntlet that is that is required to do such a thing.
Right.
And I still love medicine, right? I still love. I think medicine is fascinating. Every time we'll probably get there someday, or in the conversation. But anytime my
Mhm.
kids have to go to the ER, like I'm like, can I scrub in, right? All that kind of stuff.
Put me in, coach.
Yeah, put me in. I love medicine, and it wasn't until the summer between my 2 degree and first year did I have that midlife crisis at the age of 21, and then
Wow.
first year is when that crisis kind of came to a head, and new doors opened, and here we are today, right? So that yes, you're absolutely right. Always wanted to be a doctor. I still am fascinated by medicine, but now I'm just a pilot. So there we go.
So can you expand a little bit more on it? So was it a decision you wanted to make or a decision you had to make?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. It was a decision I had to make ultimately myself, right? No one
Okay.
said, Joe, you can't be a doctor. So the summer, there's two key things that really happened that helped influence that decision. The
Okay.
first one was the summer between 2 degree and first year. I had the opportunity to deploy to the Middle East, and we've heard of Ops Air Force. If
Yes.
you know Ops Air Force, well, at that time we had a deployed Ops Air Force. So they sent cadets overseas to deployed locations to see what was, to get the full experience in a deployed location. So
Wow.
I had the opportunity to do that. Spent the summer in CENTCOM and kind of opened my eyes
Oh, Central
to
Command. Yes. That's
Central
okay.
Command, and got to experience. I got attached to a C-130 unit, right, and I got to see what flying looked like in a deployed environment. And it
Okay.
kind of opened my eyes where I've been hyper focused on medicine, right? Like,
So focused.
so focused on this is what it takes to be a doctor. I kind of like put my blinders on to what the rest of the Air Force did, right?
Wow.
So I was like, these guys and gals are doing awesome stuff. Like this is
Hmm.
the pointy end of what's going on. And that planted a seed.
Wow.
So it came back first year, was doing the med school applications going through, and I had some free time in my academic calendar, and I got to go down to the airfield and do the powered flight program. So I got to see flying over the summer, and then I was blessed enough to have the opportunity to go fly an airplane. And I was like, okay, the seed was planted. Let's see if I get airsick. Like, let's see if there's anything else here that might make me not want to do this. And I loved it, right? I fell in
Wow.
love with flying down at the airfield. And I came back and I was like, I'm going to pause the med school applications and put my name in the hat for pilot training. And
Wow.
the rest was history, right? So
Yes.
doors open, doors close, right?
Hmm.
But that was my story, and I love getting to talk to cadets about that because so many times you'll see some that are hyper focused, and I'm like, there's always other options out there, and it's okay to have a crisis. We can talk it through.
I think that's a fantastic lesson that you actually learned early because, um, you know, it's interesting. Had you not been sent to Ops Air Force at a deployed location, you might not have taken powered flight. And so, when you think about leadership opportunities and lessons, this is one of those moments where it actually steered you in a new direction. So, as we think about that, I'm curious how your family responded to that because, um, you know, you had come to the Air Force Academy to be a doctor. Were they happy for you? Were they surprised? A little nervous?
Yeah, there was a ton of mentorship there, right? Not just from my family, but from upperclassmen peers, permanent party. They're like, "What are you doing? Like, you came here telling us this was your goal. Where did this new goal come from?" So there was a lot of time talking that through, right? And I needed that myself. It
Right.
wasn't, as you know, in any decision, like it wasn't a snap decision. So a lot of time walking through that decision process and leaning on mentors and kind of asking the questions. Like I knew what 4 years of med school and then residency, and I knew I'm like, what does pilot training look like?
Right.
How long does that take? Right. So a lot of questions to help answer or to find answers through. And ultimately my family was super supportive. And they still joke like, hey, how comes you're not a doctor? And I'm like, well, because I fly F-15s now, right? But all supportive all throughout the process, right? And that's where you lean on others, right? Lean on others
Right.
because it very much felt like a crisis. Like I still have scar tissue over it, but looking back on it, it wasn't just me I ultimately made the decision, but they helped me through it.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think about you as an officer, as a fighter pilot. Obviously, there's a lot of steps you took to get there, and the road was certainly not easy. Often, though, I think that there can be some misconceptions, or maybe this is accurate, that earlier in your pilot life or your aviator life, there's probably not a lot of leadership lessons where you're leading others. Maybe that's a misperception, and would love to talk about that. How do you find the leadership opportunities then when you are, you're party of one, right? You don't necessarily have any direct reports. What does leadership look like there?
Yeah, can we take that back to like some lessons I learned at the academy through
Oh,
class president,
absolutely.
right?
Please,
I think
yes.
that's where I've leaned most heavily in
Mm.
like not in there's this difference between formal leadership and informal, positional versus informal.
Right.
And I was blessed enough at a pretty young age to learn how to succeed and how to fail in informal leadership. I've tried to carry that throughout my career. So when you say like the younger days of being a wingman in the F-15 community, it's a lot about credibility. It's a lot about that peer leadership, right? How do you build the credibility? How do you build the trust to be someone that others look up to in
Right.
that informal system, right? In that informal system, when they look down their phone, like, who do I call? Who do I have to call? Who do I want to
Right.
call, right? And I think that's where you have to balance some of that stuff. And I spent time thinking about that and trying to lean on lessons that I learned from the academy.
Right.
And while formal leadership positions were never handed to me, that doesn't mean you're not a leader, right? Like you can't lead. It
Yes.
doesn't mean you don't just get to sit back and not lead.
Can you share an example of a time when you learned that about yourself, or what that looked like in
In
an
the,
experience?
in the flying world,
Or as a cadet, either.
yeah, as a cadet, I think the biggest one was, and I'll take it back to like freshman, sophomore year,
Okay.
where I learned one of the key pillars that I'm convinced the Air Force Academy teaches all us grads about is time management, right?
Yes.
And I thought I was pretty good at time management. And then when you're now the president of 1,000 other cadets, your inbox fills up very quickly, right? Or you're like, thought I was good at time management. And I learned very quickly that you can't do it alone, right? You can't do it alone. And I had to learn to surround myself with people that I trusted and that I could delegate or hand task off to and just say, I need this accomplished. And I did that to my friends that I knew would get the mission done, right? And I had to have that level of trust. And I think that has translated throughout my career where I inherently trust people with a project, right? I think there's two versions of trust, inherent trust and earned trust. When I look at the graduate network, whether that's the Air Force Academy, Navy, West Point, and I see a class ring, I'm like, I inherently trust you. And I'm going to, I believe, or I see someone with a veteran's hat on, or like, I inherently trust you. And then in other cases where I've had to learn and work with people, it's now I'm earning your trust and I hope you're earning mine as well. And that is this unique balance of I inherently trust you. I learned that at the academy. Now let's build on that as a foundation and get this earned trust to as high as we can.
What does some of that earned trust or becoming more credible look like when young leaders don't have the benefit of time, right? So the more time I work with you, the more I learn about you, you build that credibility, etc. How does one accomplish that? Maybe either shorten the gap or do that a little quicker or
Yeah,
more, I guess, impactfully earlier.
time is always like, we always need more time, right? Like
Right.
how often do you say like, I only have 24 hours, but I need more time, right? So if we're always fighting time, like, and everybody's fighting time, then like that's a constant. So let's not worry about time. So I look at it as like, what traits do people bring to the table, or what traits can we sharpen? Honesty, right? Honesty is huge. We have to be honest, and that's a pillar of trust. Integrity, right? Integrity first, and showing people that you display integrity is really important. Humility, I think, is also really important. Humility is really important. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it really struck home to me in sense of humility is if a leader is able to say three things, I know I can build that trust no matter what that time gap is. I'm sorry, I was wrong, or one of the 7 basic responses, I don't know, but I'll find out, right? And I think that's really important with humility. The other one is presence, not with a T, like we're not giving presents, but presence, being present is a really important character trait in my mind. And the fifth one that I try to reflect on a lot is action, right? I think defaulting to not doing something is not what we want. That doesn't help build trust. Taking action with what knowledge you have and making a decision is really important. And I think those are the traits that help build that credibility, help build that trust in that time gap, whatever that looks like. If you can hit, and those are 5 that I try to hit home. If you can do that, hopefully you're building that relationship that is going to foster, have great fruition out of it.
That's outstanding. And that's really helpful, I think. I love how you took out the constant of time being excused, right? Like we don't always have the benefit of time, whether it's time in getting more experience or just time in general. I think those are outstanding examples of how you can build credibility. So thank you for sharing that. One of the things that I also would love to kind of dig into a little bit of your experiences, Joe, because they've been really vast, right? So I don't believe that everyone has the same kind of path. How have you grown as a leader in these different experiences that really, again, aren't positional leadership roles? I'm just curious how your growth has been in that space.
I think a lot of it's been through failure.
Mm.
I think a lot of it's been through failure. Now these might not be huge, like we lost $1 million or
Right.
lost, like not through those kind of failures, but relationship failures or conversation failure at the micro level. And how I've tried to handle that is surround myself with people that will tell me that the emperor. I'm going to go back to
Is
the
not
old
wearing
fairy.
any clothes?
I'm going to go back to the old fairy tale, right? Or fable, right?
Right. Right.
If you surround yourself with people that are able to come up to you and you trust them and you trust their
Mhm.
feedback, that is something I've tried. That was Cadet Bledsoe, advice given to me as Cadet Bledsoe. Surround yourself with people that you will listen to and take their feedback honestly.
Right.
And sometimes that means if I don't have that person in the room and I know I fumbled a conversation or I made a poor decision, is going to that individual and saying, I messed up. I'm sorry. I was wrong, or I don't know. Right. And that's how I try to use that to present humility, I think. And that's important because we're all fallible. We all make
Right.
mistakes. And if I can't admit that, then like we're off to the wrong foot right away.
Do you think some of that skill that you've developed over time has been something that you've learned in, and forgive me, I don't know if it's the fighter pilot community specifically, or I think about when you do your sorties and you have some sort of debrief, right? And I feel what I've heard, I've not actually sat in one, but they're very real. Like it's not about making you feel good about it, like it's about the safety and the mission. And so I'm curious if that skill of humility and calling a spade or calling it I'm wrong and I'm wrong. Did that come from some of that experience? Or maybe you can talk through what that's like because not everyone I think practices at that level of transparency.
Yeah, the fighter pilot debrief.
Okay.
I learned some of the importance of that through mentorship as a cadet. And then that was sharpened as a fighter pilot. And I learned the importance of that through my formal job, right? The mission, the lives at stake, aircraft, that kind of stuff. And I think I've only honed that skill through Air Force training, right? The Air Force has trained me to think like that. And I've tried to translate that into my personal life and leadership positions because I think there's tons of value to that.
Right.
There is tons of value in being willing to find a mistake, own up to that mistake with the knowledge and hope that it doesn't happen again. Right. And if that is like, if that's your North Star, we don't do this again, like, why wouldn't you want to be on that team? Right. Why don't you want to be? That's how we get better. Right.
Right.
And I think that seed again was planted as a cadet. Like, I tell cadets all the time, like, you're joining the A team. So put in A effort, right? Like if you're going to join the A team, I don't want B players. And this is what we got to get, like, let's go. Right. It's a motivating factor
Right.
in my mind.
What are some of the ways to approach that in a leadership conversation for someone who would be interested in taking on some of those learned lessons?
Yeah, I think the first thing is transparency and honesty right up front. Like this, Navir, if we were flying together, right, and you were my instructor, your job is not to degrade me as a human, but to prove to me that I made a mistake with the ultimate goal of making me better, right?
Okay.
Your job is to always and the relationship you and I have as an instructor and a student is I'm going to sit here in the debrief and go, Navir's here to make me better, right? Like that's your job, right?
Right.
So once you start that as the foundation, like it can only get better. If I know your job is to make me better and your job is I'm supposed to make this guy better, right? And often we can, when feedback is provided, you're like, this could be a personal attack or like that's all left out. That's all left outside the debrief room, right? Like we're here to make everybody better. And I think that's where it starts with that transparency and honesty up front of the expectation.
Right.
If
So
you
you
just,
will actually say that. You would actually
no, I
say,
think
"We
that's
are
just a
here to."
common, that's a common theme, right?
Okay.
That's the expectation
Right.
in the community. And not just in the fighter community. I think it's throughout the Air Force, right? I think that's what makes us really, really unique.
Because feedback is something that we do, although maybe some can do it better than others. I think that's a really fantastic way. Before you're giving someone feedback, you're really clear on this is what we're hoping to accomplish by having this time together. And so I think what you just said can make feedback so much more impactful because it's not about the person. It's about what are we trying to accomplish and helping you. I guess it is about you, but ultimately helping you.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Like where every debrief starts is we had a mission objective and we had tactical objectives.
Hmm.
Did we do them? If we didn't, let's figure out why. Right. So translating to the business world or, private sector, it's a root cause analysis, right? It's
Mm.
a root cause analysis.
Yes.
And we will get down to the nitty gritty of like, what type of error? Did you make a decision error? Did you perceive the environment wrong?
Right.
Did your actions cause the error, right? And we get down to that level so that when the student Paveway here walks away, Navir, you gave me the exact, like you decided wrong because X,
Right.
Y, and Z. Don't do that again.
Right.
And here's your fix. That debrief can take hours, and that's the beauty of it, right? We're going to sit there
Right.
and we're not going to let anything not be uncovered because we're going to go do this again tomorrow, and we can't make the same mistake tomorrow, right? We
Right.
can't make the same mistake.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, to have it that clear and to know like, okay, we don't stay in that space. We've addressed it. We know we've identified a fix and we move forward. Is that what you would say? Like,
Absolutely.
there's no like continue to revisit, like,
Yep. That's the point, right? Like I've
right.
learned something. I know I've acknowledged my mistake. Let's move on. This wasn't personal. This was you making me better. Iron sharpens iron, right? So
Right.
here we go. And then move on. And now that translates, as you asked kind of a couple minutes ago, right? That can
Hmm.
translate to so many things in your life, right?
Yes.
And I try to do that. Sometimes like my wife will tell me I go too fighter pilot. But there's versions of that translate as we are not in a fighter pilot debrief.
You literally got in my head because I was gonna say, now I wanna put you on the spot because Joe, you are married to your high school sweetheart. You made the 2% club, right? Like you actually started the academy with a sweetheart and ended with the same
Same
sweetheart.
one.
And now you have 3 amazing, beautiful children. How do you translate that to feedback to your family or your personal life? And I love how your wife said, "2 fighter pilot," but
Yeah.
how about to your kids
Yeah. I married my high
and
school
others?
sweetheart, Alicia. We started dating our sophomore year and we've been together ever since. So
Love that.
she is not a grad, but she has a lot of Air Force in her blood. So
Yes.
it's great. And the kids, I would say there's a couple things when it comes to, taking some things I've learned or been trained in the Air Force and translating on the home front. The first one goes to accountability, right? I think accountability is really important because in an aircraft, you have to be accountable for your actions. And I think that translates to being a parent, as well as trying to teach the kids some humility, right? Where to be humble, when to own up to your mistakes. And sometimes that works in the fighter pilot way. Sometimes it doesn't. And I think that's leadership, right? You can have leadership skills and be consistent in some ways, but other times adaptability is really important, especially with the
Mhm.
kids. And each one of my kids is very unique, and we have to cater to each one of them and their unique skills. I will say about my wife, I love her with all my heart. But she knows the words "knock it off" as well, right? Because that's a sacred word, not just in the military, but on
Right.
in our home front. And that usually means stop being a full fighter pilot, like go back to being dad, right? So she knows the words and how to make that all go down.
I love that. It's another language, right? You have your fighter pilot language and you have a home front language. It's I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to switch gears a little bit to your time operationally, and maybe this translates into now your work at the institute, or your most recent work at the Institute for Future Conflict, in preparing cadets for the future fight. I'm curious how all of these skills that you've learned and these leadership traits that you've continued to develop in yourself have translated in moments of, you know, like real conflict, real distress, like when the stakes are high, and how you prepare cadets to think that way, even though maybe they've not experienced that. I'm just curious what that looks like.
Yeah. It is hard to translate like cadets love war stories, right? Like, so there was, but it's hard to translate some of like the having the cadets put themselves in the shoes of someone that has 15 years of flying under their belt, right? Like
Right.
that's hard for them to grasp, and I understand that, and it's not what I'm asking of them to do. But there are certain skills that I think are really important, and that I've got to experience and talk to cadets and research and spend time thinking about at the Institute for Future Conflict at the IFC. One is risk, right?
Mm.
How do we think about risk, right? Are we risk prone? Are we risk adverse? How do we think about risk, not just in this moment, but how does our decision today affect 5 days from now, a month from now,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And as you remember, because I know it happened to you as a cadet, like you're just in the like, what's my next problem, right? What's my next? Okay, but
Yes.
how does like fixing this problem affect next week, right? And I think that's what I've had the opportunity to think a lot about the IFC, as well as um, one thing I've learned being back here at the academy was my experience as a cadet is not the same experience as the cadets now. And what do I mean by that? Is when I graduated, GWAT, Global War on Terror, was the thing. We knew what we were
Right.
getting into. I very much knew flying, going to the Middle East. Now the cadets look to me and other permanent party and like, what's our fight going to look like? And right, the question mark is, I don't know, but let me tell you, think about this, and I could be wrong. And I think that is where I've had a lot of time to think about future conflict and what problems, maybe not nations or adversaries, but like big meta level things they'll have to think about. Information
Right.
access, information sharing, trust, right? How do you help develop some of these skills in the cadets? And that's where I've spent a lot of time the last 2 years trying to think and spend some brain bites, like what does air power look like in this unknown environment?
And as you're about to step back into it, I'm thoughtful of that. And so now you're taking what you've helped cadets start to hone in and think about. How are you different now as a leader going back into the cockpit than you were when you came to the academy?
Yeah. Let me get back to the cockpit and everyone can tell me how I'm different. We'll use that as this test. But here's one thing I
Okay.
think I've reflected on this recently, going back to the Strike Eagle community. One has been my exposure here in Colorado Springs and at the Air Force Academy, meaning I've learned a lot about what others do,
Mm,
that I knew other jobs existed. I knew other AFSCs did things, but not being in the day-to-day ops tempo, I've
right.
had the opportunity to sit down and like, what do you say you do? Oh, that has some effects here, here, and here. And can I use a specific vignette would be, I've got to spend a lot of time in the management department and I've
Okay.
helped teach in the global logistics minor. And like, I knew there was logisticians in the Air Force and like, yeah, right. That's how stuff
That's
got
right.
here. But like understanding the importance of like, that's how my bombs got here. This is how right? Like truly understanding their frustrations, I think will make me get less frustrated in my day to day. Right. And I think
Mm.
that has been one thing that the Academy has given back to me the second time I've been here is a little bit more exposure to the Air Force, as well as the Space Force, being here in Colorado Springs, like seeing what each team member, like each cog in the machine brings to the fight, right? And I think that's been a blessing here.
So those that you'll begin to get back working with, right? Your wing men and women in your community. they won't have had that exposure. And so I'm now going back to our where we started with this sense of informal leadership. How do you help others gain that experience and thought and or maybe thought process informally since they haven't really been exposed to that? How would you help them navigate it?
Vera, I think the best way to do stuff like that is like you raised your hand when you said logistics officer. It's like, Navir, we're doing a podcast with my next squadron. You're coming to talk, right?
Boom.
Right. It's
I'd be like, that was like a long time ago. We need someone more recent.
well, but okay, Navir, it's not you, but people. That's how stuff gets done, right? That's how stuff gets done. And while I'm by no means want to stand up in front of everybody and say, I'm the expert on logistics, but I'm not that person, but I trust Navir's contact here. And that's how like you create this network of knowledge and this network of trust and credibility. And to the fighter pilots that I'll be flying with, it's somewhat like throwing mud at the wall sometimes. Like we're going to keep throwing mud and see what sticks, but at least they know it's there, right? Like your job is still to go kill things and blow things up. But at the same time, there's this other network out there that you can lean into. Let me be a conduit to make that happen.
That is awesome. That's fantastic. So I want to go into this period now where we talk about you and your continued growth as a leader. What is something, Joe, that you're doing every day to be a better leader?
I have mentors and I've tried to find mentees. I think that is where growth can happen. Leaning on others for mentorship and mentees to try to talk through some things you've thought through and give experience and exposure to others, right? And that's that network we were just talking about, right?
Right.
Other things that I think are really important is reading and writing. Read a lot, write a lot. Nobody writes good anymore, right? Thanks, ChatGPT. But being able to communicate in the written form is really important. So writing and reading. And the other thing too is as a leader, just find an outlet, find a hobby, find something that's fun to do, right? So I got into running here at the academy because we're at high elevation and why not, right? But find something that like rounds you out, right? Find an outlet that helps give you some relief from all the stresses that can happen in leadership. That's where I would say I've spent a lot of time or what I think about trying to sharpen my skills.
Daily, yeah. So what are you reading right now?
Oh, that's a great question. I have a couple books that are on the table. Mask of Command is one that I'm reading as I get ready to go back and potentially be in a leadership role.
Okay.
There's a couple other books that come to mind. I'm reading a baseball coaching book because I coach it's a basketball book by Coach K from Duke as I go back to North Carolina. But it's a book how to coach kids, right? Leadership on the court. And it's fun to just think about training and coaching kids and how to keep them inspired.
Oh, that's awesome. So speaking of kids, if you were to go back in time and talk to younger Joe Bledsoe III, what advice would you give him?
Yeah, if I had to go back, I would say it's worth it every second. Work hard at the academy, right? The doors that it opens, that's where my mind went when you asked the question, like younger me at the academy. Be good to Alicia, my wife. Right? Be good because she's going to be with you for a long time. So be good to her, as well as foster your friendships. They're going to mean a lot to you in the future, right? What the relationships you build on that hill are going to come back in ways you have no idea years to come. So take time and prioritize the people that you meet.
Those are really great reflections. Joe, is there anything that we haven't covered in our conversation that you would love to share with our Long Blue leadership listeners and viewers?
Absolutely. Be proud of this institution. I'm proud of it. I know you are too, Navir. Be proud of this academy. Be proud of the cadets. Be proud of the permanent party that work here. There's an A team out there, and this is where it starts, right? And it's not just if you're serving in blue or in the Space Force, right? If you're out there doing awesome things for our country on the private in the private sector, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. There's no shade of blue in the long blue line. That's my phrase for
I like
that one. There's no shade of blue. Serve your country, be proud. And I'm just be proud to be an Academy grad.
That's fantastic. So, in our time together, I have loved this leadership conversation because we've really spanned an area that I don't think a lot of people talk about, and it's how do you demonstrate leadership in an informal way, and without titles and without necessarily key positions or in the hierarchical structure. And so, some of the things that were listed with me, Joe, that you've covered have been being credible, being present, and humble. I really like that, and you didn't say this in these words, but what I took from that was, being honest and truthful is almost one of the most kind ways you can be, right? Because you're actually helping someone be better. And that really stuck with me. I don't we have an A team, we don't need B players. That I think you exactly said that. So that definitely stuck with me. But I think the way that you have led not just your class, not just the cadets, and, certainly not the squadron that you will have here shortly as a director of operations, but I think you've continued to just be who you've always been, which is someone who leads with integrity through those pillars and certainly by example. So this has been an incredible conversation. And for anyone that is watching us and listening to this, for others that are in their leadership journeys, this is another one you're going to want to share because it's not just about Lieutenant Colonel Bledsoe's journey right now. It's been all of these moments and experiences and memories, and they really do connect with anyone on a leadership journey. So be sure to join in on longblueleadership.org or wherever you get your podcasts, not just to see this one, but all of our other conversations. So, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you to Veer. Go Air Force.
Go Air Force.
There we go.
Absolutely. Until next time, we'll see you on Long Blue Leadership.
This Long Blue Leadership conversation was recorded Wednesday, June 10th, 2026.